It's a potato showdown, a few different varieties, two different growing techniques, which one works better in which situation. Hey everybody, my name is Tanya. Thanks for stopping by. If you're new here, I grow in a zone 5B/6 here in northeastern Illinois, and today I'm planting out my potatoes. Now, before we dive into the actual planting, I want to talk about the few different varieties of potatoes and why I'm planting them. So there are hundreds of varieties of potatoes out there, but they are grouped into two different categories. They are either determinate varieties or indeterminate varieties. Kind of like tomatoes, they are actually related. Indeterminate varieties produce their tubers over a long period of time and grow horizontally, and they can actually continue producing tubers as long as the conditions are ideal. Determinate potatoes, however, are those that produce their crop all at once. They produce their tubers in a horizontal form and are usually mature earlier and are smaller in form. So I am doing a combination of both, and my experiment today is to determine what planting techniques work best for which type of potato in my growing zone. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And before I dive into the techniques, by the way, there is no right or wrong potato to plant depending on your location or growing zone. It really is just depending on your taste preference and what you and your family like and enjoy. We like the determinate varieties. The varieties that we choose tend to be creamier, and I like that. The Yukon Golds, Red Pontiacs, Fingerlings, they're great for roasting, sauteing, really excellent. We do have a few russet potatoes here. Those are excellent for baked potatoes, stuffed baked potatoes, and that sort of thing. So it really just depends on what your preference is. Here are the potatoes I am growing today. Here we have a russet potato, Kennebec, Red Pontiac, Yukon Gold, and Fingerling. Now, these four right here are determinate, meaning that they will produce their crops all at once in a horizontal form. So they will not produce tubers vertically, but rather horizontally, and it will produce it very early, much earlier than indeterminate varieties, usually right around the 80 to 100 day mark. This russet potato is an indeterminate variety, meaning that it will require constant hilling and can produce tubers as long as the conditions are ideal throughout the summertime. So they do take longer to mature, usually right around 110 to 135 days. So this will be longer, and it's kind of like a main season crop as it's called, and these are early potatoes. So I am going to be planting these in two different planting techniques, which I'll talk about now. So the two different growing techniques I'm trying today are the standard classic raised bed version, where I'm just going to dig trenches and put my potatoes in the trenches and covering them up with soil. I've had a great success with this over the years and had large yields of potatoes of different varieties. But I also want to try the root stout method, which is the no-dig method. This is well practiced in the gardening industry and permaculture, so I'm really excited to try this. And the whole premise behind this is less work, less maintenance, and I'm really excited for that because digging up potatoes can be a little labor intensive. With the digging up in raised beds, sometimes I run into the issue where I puncture the potatoes, which reduces their longevity and their shelf life, which I want to avoid. So the root stout method, the no-dig method, basically is just placing the potato on the ground, covering it with straw, hay, or some type of mulch, and letting them do their thing. I'm going to be doing that in this grow bag here, which I'm really excited about. And the reason why I'm doing two different methods is because I have a variety of potatoes here. Some are determinate, some are indeterminate, and I want to see which one works best for which growing technique. Based on what I've researched so far, it is advised that indeterminate varieties like the russet work best in raised beds because they do require frequent hilling up, basically meaning that they will continue to form tubers vertically and will need to be hilled up with soil or leaves or some type of compost in a raised bed, whereas in a container that could eventually run out of space. I want to try both methods because this container is fairly large. If I put a few of these russet potatoes in the bottom, they will have a long time to tube up and form those tubers and a very large growing space. So I want to experiment, see which variety works best in which growing situation, and then keep you all posted. First up, I'm going to go and dig my trench. The soil is nice and loose. I just tilled it the other day, so it is really workable, which is great for potatoes. They really need light, fluffy, soil conditions. I struggle with very clay, compact soil here in northeastern Illinois. So having light, fluffy soil is a win for me. Before we actually begin planting them, these are the sprouts here that you want to be looking for. These are the eyes of the potato. Each potato that you plant needs to have one of these in order to produce a tuber, in order to grow. This one happens to have two. Here's a nice fresh one. This will sprout up and actually grow into the plant, which will encourage the plant to form tubers. So each one of these has to have a plant, or an eye rather, and this eye needs to be facing upward towards the sky. It's also advised if you have a very large potato to cut it in half, because 2 smaller potatoes will likely produce a greater yield than 1 very large one. So each one of these halves has eyes, so I made sure of that. And I also let the skin cure for a few days just to let it harden off. It reduces moisture and reduces the risk of mold when you plant it in the ground. So these are just some tips that I've learned along the way that have worked really well for me, and I'd love to hear about other tips that you do to plant your potatoes. What works well for you? Drop it in the comments. Here's another really good example of a potato that I halved, the skin cured, and look at all those eyes. So those will all grow up to form stems and form the leaves, which will then encourage the plant to produce those tubers. Pretty cool. So now that I have my trench dug, I'm going to go ahead and amend it with some fertilizer. This is Garden Tone from Espoma. This offers a really good balance of magnesium, phosphorus, and calcium, all essential ingredients for vegetables, any type of vegetable gardening. I do like to amend my soil. You can use any fertilizer really that works well for you. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle a handful in the trench. Mix it in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with my red Pontiacs. And when placing these, place them, again, the eye towards the sky and right around 6 inches apart. So they have plenty of room to form new potatoes and they don't get too crowded. In terms of moisture, potatoes do like pretty consistent moisture. I do have them on drip regularly. I did run into an issue last year where I accidentally had a drip line tear and was running water, so it kind of caused a little bit of a plant rot situation. So I didn't have the best yield last year, but the year prior I had an excellent yield and they just get consistent watering daily. But we get very hot and very humid here in zone 5B/6. So it really depends on your location, how much rainfall you get, to determine how much water your plant needs. Now, in terms of hilling up, the determinate varieties do not require as much hilling as, say, the indeterminate varieties, which continue to grow vertically, because the determinate varieties grow horizontally. But I have run into situations where, because they form so many potatoes, the potato will peek out and I'll see the tip of the potato, in which case I do hill it up. So it does require some moderate hilling, basically meaning that I'm just creating a mound of soil. And that's really to protect the potato from being exposed to the sun. Because if it's exposed to the sun, it will turn green and that really doesn't taste the greatest. You can eat it, but it just doesn't taste very good. All right, so this is now ready. I'm gonna go and create a nice little mound here. And potatoes really are, I think, probably the easiest crop I've ever grown in my life. They are pretty much hands-free, maintenance-free, no pruning, no tying off, no trellising needed, nothing. And harvesting potatoes is such a fun activity, especially with the kids. I mean, it's like searching for little diamonds. It's so fun. All right, so one row is now done. So next, I'm going to go ahead and try a indeterminate variety. I will do the russet in this row, again, just to experiment to see which growing situation, which growing medium works best for which type. And you might be wondering, well, what to do with all the potatoes if you have too many? Well, potatoes actually preserve beautifully. You can just simply chop them up or dice them up, toss them in the freezer in a Ziploc baggie, and they will keep. So you can pull them out months later in the dead of winter, saute them up, and you have a meal. So that's the great thing about potatoes. You can also can them if you like canning. Great for preserving that. Or just make ready-made meals. It's an excellent, excellent food to store. So again, here are my indeterminate varieties. And I am going to give these a little bit more room to spread out because I want them to form all the tubers they need to form. I will go and toss a determinate variety here at the end because I'm almost out and I want to make sure that I have enough to plant in the grow bag. And what I'm really excited about experimenting with the grow bags is that it gives me that much more instant space. It's portable, I can move them. And if I don't want to use them 1 year, I don't have to. So it's a kind of a low commitment for me. Putting up a garden bed is quite a bit of effort, but a grow bag, not so much. So I'm really excited to try those. I've heard a lot of success with those, also growing in buckets, which is pretty cool. That's a very low cost way to grow potatoes. I'm always excited to find DIY or budget-friendly ways to grow vegetables, because the whole point is to, yes, grow our own food, but also to make it cost-effective. So if I can find ways to do that, even better. All right. So we got our bed planted up. And for hilling purposes, you know, if I see potatoes kind of popping out over the course of the summer as they mature, I can just simply add more compost, more mulch, leaves, any type of natural debris to cover them up and block them from it being exposed to the sun. You don't have to add soil if you don't have it on hand. Hay, straw, grass clippings, really anything that's a natural debris that will break down and add nutrients to the soil can be used. This is a good angle of how these are mounded up and hilled. So there's kind of 3 different mounds here and with indentations. So that way the potatoes are nice and protected as they begin to sprout up. All right, so here I've got my grow bag. I'm simply going to pour a little bit of potting soil in here. A few inches is what was recommended. Again, this is my first time doing this, so it is totally an experiment for me, and I'm really excited to see the results. I'm just going to break up the soil a little bit. All right, I have a pretty good layer of soil in there. Next, I'm just going to add my fertilizer, good handful or 2, and then place my potatoes in there. I don't want to add too many. I don't want to get it too crowded, so I'm just going to place them right on top. These are the Kennebec variety. These are determinate. So I'm going to do 1 determinate bag and 1 indeterminate bag. Again, just to see and experiment what grows best for which growing condition. So here I've got 2 Kennebec, 2 red Pontiac, and now I'm going to go ahead and layer it with fallen leaves. Straw or hay is recommended, but anything that is nutrient dense that can act as natural debris and that will break down and cover up these potatoes can really be used. So grass clippings, fallen leaves. And what was recommended to me is about 6 inches or so of fallen leaves. And then as this leaf layer breaks down, I will go ahead and add more leaves or any other grass clippings, anything I might have on hand to continue to add that layer that the potatoes need. Okay, there we have it. So this is really nicely insulated now. I'm going to go ahead and place this in a sunny location. I will put this on drip just to make sure that they get the water that they need. Although I have read that with the roof stump method, watering is not necessarily needed, but we do get very hot and dry, or very hot here rather, in northeastern Illinois, and rainfall can sometimes be unpredictable. So I don't want to count on that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second container with a few different varieties, same method, and then we will wait and watch. All right, here they are planted. 2 different grow bags here with both indeterminate and determinate varieties, as well as my garden bed here with both varieties as well. So I will keep you all posted. Drop in the comments below. Let me know if you've had luck growing these. That was a really fun project to do together. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop in the comments below. I'd love to hear about what techniques you use to grow your potatoes. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps this channel grow, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.